All right, hi all, welcome back to another day of Bio 148. Today we're going to be diving more into evolution. So we had talked yesterday about natural selection and the different types of natural selection, as well as mutation, because mutations are necessary for us to have that variation to start with. Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about some other forces, including genetic drift and gene flow. But let's start by doing just a really quick review of natural selection and then go from there. Okay, so let's go back to having those beans again. Okay, I'm gonna start a little, actually I'm just gonna show you. So I've got my beans again, and let's say that I am in that dark soil, remember? And in the dark soil, it's better to be a dark bean because it's harder to see you, okay? Oops, that's a lot of beans. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so in the dark soil, it's better to be dark, but right beside it, I've got these leaves, and you can kind of see that the dark ones actually stand out a little bit more when I do that, okay? So today we're going to be playing with some graphs and looking at how we can have these different environments and how we can have different forces actually acting on these populations. So we're going to start by making a graph and tracking what happens with natural selection. So let's go back to our notes. Today is going to be day 13. And we're going to be talking about all of the evolutionary forces. So remember that we have mutations. And in order for a mutation to be inherited in the next generation, it has to be in the germline, right? So they can happen in somatic cells, but when they do, they're not inherited, right? So mutations that happen in germline cells can be inherited. And these mutations are what create variation. Heritable variation specifically, right? Okay, then we talked about natural selection. And remember that there's a few different types of natural selection. I'm actually going to just turn this one red just so that we have different colors, different things being different colors. Oops. Go back. Let's try that. Okay, natural selection, where we had 3 different types of natural selection. So we could have directional. We could have disruptive, or we could have stabilizing. Oops, stabilize. So in directional selection, we're going to shift the curve, right? In disruptive, we're going to end up with something like this. And with stabilizing, we're going to narrow it, okay? So maybe I'll just shift it. We're going to have different outputs for the different types of natural selection. So now let's play with this idea of changing, the populations changing over time. Okay, so in natural selection, here I'm going to draw an XY graph. So again, x-axis here like an ox, y-axis here like a yo-yo. Okay, and I'm going to put some different things on these axes this time. So on the x-axis, I'm going to put the number of generations, or generation number rather. Okay, and then on the y-axis, I'm going to do the frequency of, I don't know, let's do white beans. Okay, frequency of white beans. So we did something with this yesterday, but I didn't do this graph because I wanted to come back and do this graph when we actually talk about drift at the same time. So here I'm going to just change all that because I'm going to actually put both of them on there. Okay, so when I have natural selection, we started out last time, remember, with a 50-50, right? So here's 50% Down here is 0%, right? And then up here at the top is going to be 100%. Let's make all that black too. Okay. So here when I have natural selection happening, I've got my population of beans in my soil. And if there is a predator around, okay, oops. Okay, so if there's a predator around, like me, I'm a predator, right? I'm going to come through and I'm going to just look for the beans that I can see the easiest. I'm going to spread them out a little bit first. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I got rid of those beans, and then all the beans are going to replicate. Okay, so I started at 50%, 50-50, and now I have one white bean, so it's going to replicate, and I have, I can't even find it, my fourth brown bean. I don't know, it's in there somewhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I've got 2 white beans now and 8 brown beans. So my frequency of my white beans is now only at 20%. So if I go back to my graph here, right, I started, remember, at 50%. Oops. I started at generation 1. So just as generation 1, I started at 50%. After 1 generation, I went all the way down already to 20%, generation 2. So generation 2, I went down to 20%. Now let's do that again. So let's go back here. And again, I'm going to be a predator. I'm going to pick out 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see I already have only 5 brown beans left. So I'm going to add those 5 brown beans into the soil. Okay. So just in a couple generations, I've completely eaten all the white beans and only the brown beans are left. Okay. So here I've gone all the way down, oops, where'd it go, to 0% white beans already, okay? So I really drastically changed, okay? And the type of selection that was happening here was directional selection, right? It was, I was eating all of the white beans, so the brown beans had better fitness. So in this example here, brown beans had higher fitness, right? Because the predator wasn't seeing them, right? White beans were being eaten. Okay. Now, multiple types of selection can go on at the same time. One thing that could be happening is that sometimes natural selection and that is like a directional selection, that's a pressure put on by a predator, is going to be opposed by something like sexual selection. So maybe, there's a helicopter. So maybe it will be better actually to be a white bean if you're just looking for a mate. So maybe the brown beans really like the white beans and they're going to mate even though the white beans just keep on getting eaten. Okay, this happens a lot with birds and with fish in real life. So fish sometimes are colorful, even though it is riskier and attracts predators, and the same with birds. So sometimes the bird coloration can be a sign of health, but it also is attracting predators. So there's kind of this this trade-off between sexual selection pressures and predator pressure. That's the word I'm looking for, and predator pressure. Okay, now I want to play with another example of this. Okay, so I'm going to reset my my beans so that I have 5 of each again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 white beans. Okay, so I got a 50-50 mix in there. Okay, so I've got a 50-50 mix of white and brown beans. Okay, so you guys can see that 50-50 mixture. And now I'm not going to be a predator. Instead, it's just like random death caused by who knows what. Maybe the beans were out in a hailstorm and some of them just got taken out. So I'm just going to mix these up, and then I'm just going to randomly just pull out maybe this whole set here died. I don't know how many I have. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. So I've got 5 left now, and I just did that just by like reaching down into the soil and grabbing them out. Okay. I wasn't like a predator using sight to try to find them. Okay. And so here you can see I've got 2 brown beans left. So I'm going to add 2 more brown beans and 3 white beans. So I'm going to add 3 white beans, and we're going to mix them up again. And again, something's going to come through that just wipes out a random set. Okay. But let's track this first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white beans. So this time I went up a little bit. So now I have 6 white beans in generation 2. Okay, so I'm just randomly going to pick again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't find. Is that a bean? Yes, 5. Okay, so I picked them out again. Now we need to add 2 white back in and 3 brown back in. Okay, and so now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 white. So, oh, you guys didn't see me do that. I'll show you. Okay, so I've got 4 white now. So I have 40% that are white. So now I'm going to go down to 40% for generation 3. We'll do another generation. Go back to the camera. Okay, so I'm going to do another generation where I'm just going to randomly pick them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and it looks like I've got 2 white and 3 brown again. So I'm going to put those back. 3 brown, 2 white. So my my frequency didn't change in this case. So I stayed there. And then, oops. 40%, 40%, those are the same. Okay, and then I'm going to do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now I have 3 white beans. And I need to add in 2 browns. So I'm back up to 60% again. Oh, I forgot to show you again. Okay, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white. So I'm going to go back up to 60% for generation 5, and I could keep on doing this, okay, where I go where I just randomly am selecting some. Okay, so the frequencies go up and down and up and down and up and down. It's unpredictable. Okay, so this line here is genetic drift. Okay, and genetic drift is going to be unpredictable. And individuals just die or survive and reproduce just randomly, okay? So it's unpredictable and random. It could be due to forces like storms, like a random log drifting out to sea, like humans coming through and just randomly deciding, at least as far as the organisms are concerned, randomly deciding to cut down this section of a forest because we want it for development, or we want to plant something else there, or whatever, right? So genetic drift is going to be unpredictable and random, okay? And then there's a third force that I want to talk about, I guess 4th, including mutations, right? But the last one is called gene flow, okay? And with gene flow, this is when we have multiple populations in the same area, okay? Or in different areas. So we could have gene flow where we have, just want to show you. Okay, so here's my individuals, here's my population. Maybe I have another population over here on the leaves, okay? And maybe this population that's over here on the leaves has a mixture of white and brown individuals. Maybe there is reasons to be brown and reasons to be white. So here you can see kind of some disruptive selection where maybe it'd be good to be brown or dark, but maybe the intermediate wouldn't be good or something like that, right? Over here in the dark soil, over time, given enough time, remember, and even in our situation where we had the white go to extinction in only a couple of generations, right? We only have brown, okay? So before we have any gene flow, we've got a population that has both white and brown and a population that just has brown. So let's just draw that out really quick, okay? So here we've got two populations. One of the populations has only brown because it's in like a dark background. Actually, let's do that first, the dark background first. Okay, so here's one population. And I've got this dark background. And so it's good to be a dark bean in it, right? Because you blend in. So all of this population, let's say, is, I don't know, big B, okay? And then this other population, right, that's on the leaves, has some dark areas and some light areas. Maybe there was some disruptive selection happening, or maybe it was something else, but made it so that there's both. So here we have some dark individuals in this population, and we have some white individuals in this population as well. That doesn't really work. Let me just circle. Right, some white individuals in this population as well that just kind of blend into that wider space a little bit better, okay? Okay, so over here, maybe the white individuals are little b, and these black ones are going to have at least one big B. It could be big B, little b, or big B, okay? So here we have some differences in the genotypes that are present, right? So in this population, we only have the big B allele, right? In this population over here, maybe we have the big B allele or the little b allele, okay? So you can imagine that if something happens where some individuals go from one population to another one, then we might introduce some different alleles. So if we just take a few of these individuals here from this population, right, and they, for whatever reason, fly over here, now we've suddenly introduced, I should do that white one in a different color. Oh, back. Actually did need that. Okay. Right? Suddenly we have this little b allele now in our population as well, okay? So little b is now in the population. When some individuals go from one population to another, so this is when genes flow from one population into another population. And when that happens, a lot of times the genetic makeup of the populations become more similar, okay? So the result is typically more variation in the population that kind of receives the individuals, right, that new individuals are coming to. And the two populations are more similar. Okay, and so a lot of times this will increase the variation that's present here. I wanted to go back for a little while actually to genetic drift though, and talk about some different cases of how genetic drift can happen, okay? So one of the big ones that I want you guys to know about, okay? So remember that genetic drift is random and unpredictable. Random and unpredictable. Predictable, right? And I want you all to think about this population where maybe we have the variation there to start with, okay? So we've got our black individuals. Maybe we have, I'm just going to do yellow just so that it's easier to see. Some yellow individuals, okay? And maybe in one of our generations, right, we have squashed out, something has happened, maybe us has happened, right? Where these ones all on this side have died, okay? Not through any fault of their own, they just randomly were on like the right side of this circle and they all got killed. Okay, so this is what's left for the next generation, right? So this is what I just was showing you guys with the beans. I just wanted to draw it out too. So maybe all of these replicate, right? And some of them are going to go into like that same area again, or maybe a different area where they're like, okay, well, we're stuck here, so we're just going to go there. And maybe now, maybe humans have built a little house over here, right? Oops. Maybe this is a housing development. And then now there's another thing that comes through and they say, okay, well, we want to park right here. So they get rid of all of these individuals, right? And you're left with just these few up here, right? Okay, and maybe they all replicate and try to just fill in that space, right? And then maybe we need a road to go to the housing development, a new one, because there's too much traffic. So we decided to build a road right here, right? And so just in a few steps from us, we have completely swashed out the black ones, okay? So this is when we've like decreased our population so that we've lost genetic variation. Okay, so we've lost genetic variation just through this random process of genetic drift. Now, let's say that the people are like, oh, you know what? We kind of messed up. Let's let that park go back to what it was and not be so strict about just having like just the plants that we want, but really anything that can live there, right? Well, we're still going to have that road there. We're still going to have all these houses over here, right? And maybe these critters can expand again. So we've got, oops, back. What am I doing? Oh, okay. I don't want any of that. Okay. So maybe they can expand back into that park area. But notice that when they expand back into that park area, that genetic variation is still what has been lost, right? So we still have only yellow. Still only yellow. Even when they get more area. Okay, so even if they were to expand and expand, even if these people were to start building gardens where these little guys could live, right? Even then, we still only have the yellow unless we get a new mutation, right? So maybe this one ends up having a new mutation and some variation can be introduced, right? So variation can only be reintroduced through mutation, right? But there's actually another way that they could be reintroduced as well. So think about this up here where we had gene flow going on between two different populations. So maybe way over here, we have another population of individuals, and maybe this population of individuals, oops, go away, has its own set of variation. Maybe there's yellow and green individuals over in this one, right? If some individuals from this population, right, that's kind of just hanging out, it's maybe a small little area, so it's hanging out away from this housing development, but is always kind of present, right? Oops, go back. I want the whole thing, not just the one. Okay. maybe if we still had some individuals over here, right, maybe some of these individuals could actually go into this population as well, okay? So maybe these guys come over into this population, right? So we could also have gene flow introducing additional ones, right? So, oops, back. So gene flow could also introduce variation. But remember again, right, that maybe this black variant is completely lost. We could have some gene flow allowing more variation to come in. We could also have this mutation maybe in the next generation would make it so that there's another color, a blue individual or something, right? So variation can be added to existing populations either through mutation or through gene flow, okay? Genetic drift is going to get rid of, a lot of times we'll get rid of variation in small populations. So if this population was really, 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 really big, we would have to do a lot of these events to make it so that we might lose that genetic variation, okay? But if it's a small population like what we have here, it's pretty easy in just a few generations to accidentally knock out genetic variation. Also note that remember that our natural selection is going to have different effects on variation, okay? So when we have directional selection, we're going to also lose variation, right? Versus when we have disruptive selection, we're going to maintain or could potentially even increase after additional mutations, okay? Maintain variation, right? And then stabilizing selection, it really depends on what is causing this. But the width of our curve definitely decreases, and often we lose variation. Because there might be some genes acting out on the extremes that we lose those alleles for some of those genes. Okay? All right, so these are the main evolutionary forces, right? So we've got mutations that happen in germline cells are the ones that can be inherited, and they're going to be the things that create variation. Even down here in this population where we had both yellow and green, remember that this green allele, maybe all individuals originally were yellow, this green allele was the product of mutation, right? As well. So just kind of keep that in mind, is that we always have mutation as the baseline. If we have no heritable variation, right, no mutations, no differences in the genetics, then we can't have any of the other forces act, whether it's selection, genetic drift, or gene flow. Okay. All right, so let's grab our learning objectives for today. I feel like these ones are actually kind of vague. I don't completely love them. Okay, let's add them anyway. Okay. Talk about gene flow and about genetic drift. Okay. So we can do gene flow first. So describe the impact of gene flow on the evolution of populations. Predict the effect of fitness, if possible, for populations evolving due to gene flow. Okay, so for this one, when we're thinking about the impact of gene flow, right? So gene flow introduces variation, can introduce, doesn't always, depends. And actually I want this to be green, so let's just get rid of all of this. So gene flow can increase variation, right? And makes two populations more similar to each other. Okay. Predicting the effect of fitness, if possible, on mutations. So this one's kind of a tricky one. So fitness can increase if the new variants are kind of selected for or are useful in the new population, right? So if instead, you can think of it kind of this way. So right here I had my brown individuals, and when I had new brown and white individuals coming in, the white variation didn't increase the fitness of the population. It actually decreased the fitness in this population, right? But you can imagine a situation where we had something a little bit different, where instead we had all white individuals in this population, right? And then when we introduced a variant, that brown individual, then it actually could increase the fitness of the population, right? So the gene flow itself is going to be pretty random for the most part, but then selection can act after that to have the population increasing or decreasing, okay? So fitness can increase if the new variants are useful in the population, but that just isn't always the case. Okay, because those new mutations, those new variants could be deleterious, right? So that's bad in the second environment. They could be beneficial, so they're good in this environment, right? Or they could be neutral, where they have no effect. They're not good or bad, okay? These three, remember, are also the case for the mutations, right? Mutations can be good, bad, or neutral depending on the environment that it's in, okay? All right. And then, oh yeah, then that's it. Okay, so next let's grab genetic drift. Okay, so describe the impact of genetic drift on the evolution of populations. So remember that drift is random, right, and unpredictable, but it often results in losing variation. It can result in a loss of variation. And that's especially true in small populations. So it's going to have a larger effect in small populations. Okay. So drift is random. It can result in a loss of variation. Sometimes this can take a lot of time, or it can be pretty fast depending on the size of the population. And predicting the effect of fitness, if possible, it's random. I can't really predict the effect of fitness. One thing though is that when we lose variation, so we can't really predict right? But a loss of variation will make it harder to adapt, right, to changes in the environment. So any changes in the environment. Okay. All right. So if we do have that loss of variation, if we suddenly have a change in the environment, you can think of our beans here with our leaf litter, right? If we've lost some variation and our environment changes, what's underneath changes, then we're going to be able to not be able to adapt. We're going to be just stuck with what we have unless we have either gene flow or mutations adding new things in, right? Okay, so I think that's it for today. Oh, I wanted to talk about sexual selection a little bit. So I think I wanted to talk about this just because it's kind of fun, okay? So sexual selection, and this is a type of selection that happens because of differences in the sexes. And often because of different inputs in how much effort males and females will put into offspring. Happens because of differences in energy input into offspring. Right? So I often, I use this example of deer in my PhD dissertation talk, where a female deer gives this huge egg, right? And a male deer gives just this tiny little sperm, right? And so even the size difference here is huge. This egg has, of course, the nucleus with the DNA in it. Deer have more than 4 chromosomes, but that's all I can fit, right? She gives this entire thing, right? There's mitochondria, circular DNA in there. There's usually more than one mitochondria. She's got all kinds of proteins in this egg. There's ribosomes in this egg, okay? The sperm, all it's got is just, in a lot of species, it just has DNA, okay? So these two will end up coming together. We'll talk about this more later too. These two will end up coming together to form a zygote. So let's get rid of that. So that DNA that's in there will go into the cell and go into the nucleus. Okay? And so we've got just that from the sperm, right? That's all that the sperm has given to this zygote. Okay? And then it goes beyond that, right? So the mom goes through pregnancy, and birth. And in mammals, at least, like breastfeeding for most, right? Humans are the only ones that don't always do that, right? And then they usually have a big role in raising the young. So think about like deer, teaching them what to eat and how to eat it. Where to sleep. How to avoid predators. How to cross roads and rivers, right? And the list just goes on, right? So the females put a lot of effort in, whereas the male only gave the sperm and then was like, peace, I'm out, right? So male deer have to fight over access to females because those females put in so much energy and effort compared to what the males are putting in. So a lot of times sexual selection is due to trying to gain access for females. So this results in things like antlers, where the males will fight. It results in the long necks of giraffes. So giraffes actually don't have long necks to reach trees. They have them so that the males fight each other by wrapping their necks around each other and trying to topple each other like a wrestling match. Actually, like a little fly just flew by me. Drosophila will do this thing where they do these elaborate courtship dances, but they also kind of box each other to gain access to females. So all kinds of species do this, okay? Especially in the animal kingdom, okay? All right, so I think that is it for today. I hope you guys kind of had fun with learning about these different types of evolution, how they work, how we can gain variation, the only way to ultimately gain variation is through mutations, right? But new variation can be added to a population through gene flow. But both selection and drift are going to often be making us lose any variation that has been added into the population. Okay, so I hope that was fun, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow. Bye.